Hey there guys, it's Skipper Megan. If you are new, then welcome aboard, and if you're returning, as always, welcome back. So I know I skipped a week in there. Obviously it was 4th of July here in America, so I was out hanging out with my friends and my family, celebrating with, some barbecue and all that good stuff that is truly American. So this week I thought I would, in honor of the 4th of July, I would do a video talking about one of the patriotic attractions at Walt Disney World, the Hall of Presidents. I've mentioned it a couple of times before. It's one of my absolute favorites. So I thought I would go into a little bit of the history of the attraction, how it kind of got to where it is today, some of the changes that it's had, and a couple of fun facts about it. So when Walt was designing Disneyland, he actually already envisioned an attraction like this. He wanted to have an attraction that focused on all of the presidents, and he wanted to be able to have all of them there and kind of tell the stories of all of the presidents up until that point. Unfortunately, the technology did not allow for that at the time, so around the early 60s, when Walt started developing all of the audio animatronics, he actually took an audio animatronic, Abraham Lincoln, who was one of his heroes. He took Abraham Lincoln to the 1964-65 World's Fair in New York, and that animatronic was so well regarded and it was so well received that he actually turned it into an attraction that is still at Disneyland now. It is Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. So the premise of that was just, it was an audio animatronic Abraham Lincoln that he could stand up, he could move, he could talk, and he would deliver speeches, and it was just a historical look into Abraham Lincoln's life. And like I said, Walt really wanted to be able to have that experience, but with all of the presidents. So then, once the technology was a little bit better, unfortunately Walt never did get to see it because he died before the Magic Kingdom opened at Walt Disney World. But on the opening day, October 1st, 1971, the Magic Kingdom did open with the Hall of Presidents, which was Walt's vision of having all of the presidents there in audio animatronic form and people really getting to see the history come alive. So if you have not been to the Hall of Presidents, just briefly what it is, it's like a 20 to 30 minute stage show. I think the actual specified runtime is like 23 minutes. And it's got a 5-screen, 180-degree view that plays a film. And then there's also every single one of the presidents, all the way from George Washington up to our current president, that they acknowledge, they've moved, they bend, they talk, some of them stand, and they're really very lifelike, and it's kind of freaky if that kind of thing bothers you. But they're not just wax figures that stand there and they don't do anything. They actually move, and it's kind of hard to separate, are these real people, are they not? They're not, but they look like real people, and it's really fascinating. So always, I'm going to recommend check out the Hall of Presidents. As far as the actual history and what changed with the attraction, when it opened in 1971, obviously it only went through President Nixon because that was the sitting president at the time. So over the years, from 71 to 93, not that much changed. It was basically the same. They would just add in the new president each year. So, they added after Nixon, they added Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, on and on, until 1993 when they were going to add President Bill Clinton. When they added Bill Clinton, though, they decided to change up the attraction a little bit more. When they changed the film, they wanted it to focus more on more social and ethical issues that the country had experienced, more about the wars, more about slavery, more about things like that, social rights issues that had happened in the country that at this point now were history. They were not, present day conflicts that were happening. We weren't still in the middle of the civil rights movement. That was kind of a thing still when Disney World opened. So now that that was actually history, we could look back on it and say, this was something that happened, and now this is how we've progressed. That's the point of the Hall of Presidents, is to show conflicts and progression through American history and see how we've gotten to where we are today. One of the biggest changes that happened when Bill Clinton was added in 1993 was he actually had a speaking role. Now obviously all of the presidents up until that point could not have had a speaking role because not all of them were living. Obviously Nixon and onward, they were still living. But they decided in 1993 with Bill Clinton to give him a speaking portion, and that has remained true since. Every sitting president does go in and record a speech that they then deliver in their audio animatronic selves at the attraction. Another one of the most notable changes that happened in 1993, big year apparently, 1993, up until 1993, people who worked within the Disney company had actually been the narrators, the most prominent of which was Lawrence Dobkin, who actually was the narrator for Spaceship Earth for a few years too, so you might have recognized his voice if you went back in the 80s. But so Maya Angelou was picked to be the narrator, and she remained the narrator until 2001 when they changed the attraction again for the arrival of President George W. Bush. When Bush took office, then J.D. Hall, another actor and voice actor, he took the position of the narrator, and he was the narrator up until 2009 when President Barack Obama took position, and then we got the booming, wonderful voice of Morgan Freeman, and he is still our narrator. I don't know if that's going to change when they open the attraction back up. The attraction was supposed to open a couple of weeks ago, but it actually is going to open up late 2017, whatever that means. They're still working to get President Trump's speech put in, so hopefully we will be seeing that sometime later this year. Another thing that changed in 2009, they had used the Battle Hymn of the Republic for the song at the end of the attraction. They had used that all the way up into 2009, and they decided for a little while to use America the Beautiful. They decided to take that back out in 2011, and they put Battle Hymn of the Republic back in. So that is basically it as far as how the attraction has progressed. Like I said, not a lot has changed. You know, they add each new president when they are elected, but other than that, it's kind of remained the same premise. They still want to see all of the progress and all of the trials and tribulations of the American story. So you get to see everything that has happened through American history. And even if you are not from America, I think that it is really interesting to learn something about this country. And if you are from America, sometimes you learn things that you probably didn't know about. So that's one thing that's really good about Hall of Presidents. Another thing is a couple of the fun facts that make it super interesting to me. One of the most obvious ones is when you walk into the actual front hall of the, front of the Hall of Presidents, you notice that it is modeled after Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, the building in Philadelphia. It's modeled after that, and when you walk in the doors, on the floor, right in the middle, you're going to see the presidential seal. That is actually one of two presidential seals. The other one is in the Oval Office, and it actually took a literal act of Congress to get that to be able to be displayed in the Hall of Presidents, because that's not somewhere that the president is. So why would they have a presidential seal? But it happened, so we do have an actual legitimate presidential seal at the Hall of Presidents in Disney World. One of the little noticed facts is the more recent presidents actually are wearing some of their own clothes. Nancy Reagan famously used to bring in clothes for her husband Ronald Reagan, and they dressed the animatronic figures actually in their real clothes. Bill Clinton is wearing one of his own wristwatches in the show. So some of the more recent presidents are wearing some clothes from their actual wardrobes, and I think that's just really fun. Another thing about the clothes, if you walk around in the entryway of the Hall of Presidents, you're going to see a couple of artifacts and some fun things, a lot of dresses from first ladies in the past, and those are real artifacts, and they get switched out periodically, so make sure that you're always checking to see what new things are in there. And one of my favorite things about the Hall of Presidents just really goes to show you exactly how much detail Disney is willing to put into it. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, actually, because he was paralyzed from polio as a child, and he always was in a wheelchair or used braces on his legs when he was walking, the animatronic figure actually has a brace on his leg, just to show you just how much detail they are putting into it. They want it to be exactly to the specifications of the president and exactly how the president would have been seen in his real life. So under his pants, you can sometimes kind of make out, if you're close enough, you can see that he does have a brace on underneath his slacks. Imagineers get creative with animatronics. And like I said in the Jungle Cruise video, you can see that one of the guys at the trapped safari scene is the same face as the graveyard attendant in the Haunted Mansion. If you are paying attention in Spaceship Earth, you're going to see a couple of famous presidents. So make sure that you're checking that out. I've got them written down, so that's what I'm looking at right now. President Theodore Roosevelt, good old Teddy. He is also, you like Teddy Roosevelt? Yeah. He is also one of the Egyptian priests. And he is a Roman senator in the Hall of Presidents, or not in the Hall of Presidents, that's what we're talking about. He is those two things in Spaceship Earth. So when you're going through there, check out, you can see Teddy Roosevelt's face on those two. James Buchanan is the famous Johannes Gutenberg, who invented the printing press. And Eisenhower is the lute player. And Grant is the sculptor in the Renaissance scene. And then Pierce and John Tyler are both scholars. When you go through the section where they're talking about the scholars and mathematicians and everything, you can see some of the presidents rocking it out in Spaceship Earth. Who knew that some of the presidents were back helping us progress through technology and communication? That's exciting. So that is it. That is a little bit about the history and the fun facts of the Hall of Presidents. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July holiday if you are celebrating that. And if not, I hope you are having a wonderful summer. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, y'all.